Please welcome to the stage President and CEO, Sumo Logic, Ramin Sayar.
Good morning, and welcome to Illuminate 2019. I would like to start with a little story about this satellite. It's not such a small satellite, it's a massive one. But unfortunately, this satellite was in space and intended to go around Mars. But unfortunately, what ended up happening is this satellite lost communications. The satellite lost communications because there was a 49-second error. What was that 49-second error caused by? Unfortunately, it wasn't because they didn't have an intelligent team, the best technology, or the best tools. It was caused because they made a miscalculation. They made a 49-second error on when the satellite would orbit Mars. And as a result, it led to a $330 million loss. So not only is this satellite now space junk, but it actually points to something that's really important for us to talk about today. And that is that we have a massive intelligence gap. And that intelligence gap is actually driven because we're all motivated to drive our businesses. We're all motivated to drive our digital businesses because it's either compete or be left behind. And there's 5 challenges to driving digital businesses. I'd like to talk about those 5 and give you some perspectives on those. The first of those 5 challenges is all centered around continuous release. Continuous release is because we all need to deploy software and code faster. And in fact, leading organizations deploy code 208 times faster than their peers. And in some cases, they're deploying code every 11.7 seconds. And while that seems miraculous to some, and these stats seem amazing, it's not just about how quickly digital businesses are transforming by deploying code. It's about how they manage the entire DevSecOps lifecycle or pipeline to be able to address the challenges they face every single day. The challenges with respect to intelligence. These intelligence challenges are just surmounting and becoming bigger and bigger. And the reason for that is because we're constantly dealing with a tsunami of continuous data. The continuous data tsunami is impacting the way every team, every individual needs to be able to communicate and, more importantly, collaborate and make real-time intelligent decisions. Every team is being struggled with the fact that the lack of visibility because they have siloed tools, and these siloed tools actually prevent intelligent decisions. To make matters worse, the continuous data stream and the tsunami that's hitting us is exploding. In fact, machine data is expected to be 16 zettabytes exiting next year. To make matters worse, by 2025, more than 50% of all data will be in the cloud. So while we have this tsunami of data coming and hitting us, and we have all these silos of tools that don't provide the visibility and real-time intelligence, the problems, the pains, the challenges continue to pile up on us. And it doesn't just stop with the continuous data. It actually continues with continuous choice. We live in an economy, in a world, where consumerization has impacted all of us. We want choice. We want choice of where our data resides. We want choice of what service providers or tools we use. But unfortunately, we don't always get choice. We don't get choice because we're always locked in by vendors and their antiquated models. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. But choice brings complexity. Choice brings even more noise. It's like living in a zoo of choice. What do we mean by that? Well, unfortunately, what we're left to deal with because of vendors' antiquated models is to be able to have to integrate all these disparate silos and tools with the new technologies and services that we want to build. And as a result, it creates a collective continuous intelligence gap, not just in one organization across development or operations or security or customer success, but unfortunately, across the collective team. So with choice comes complexity, obviously, But the real issue here is not only about choice. The real issue here is that vendors have let us down. Vendors have let us down over the last decade because they've had locked us in. They've locked us into legacy models. They've given us software, buggy software, that we have to install, set up, configure, administer, manage, and the pain goes on and on. And you know what? Some have the audacity to take that same crappy software and host it for you, and guess what? Call it cloud. That's not cloud. That's complexity. And that complexity is continued by those vendors, not only because of the way they build software and package it and deliver it to you, but also the way they charge you. The usage models, the licensing of these antiquated vendors has not done us justice. And we need to change that. To further perpetuate this challenge, not just with value, but all the other aspects of continuous release and data and choice, it comes down to collaboration. Our problems even get worse because we can't collaborate. We need real-time intelligence. And unfortunately for a lot of us today, as evidenced by a recent report, 39% of enterprises deal with 30+ different tools for monitoring to give them observability. Observability is not the answer. A silo tool for monitoring does not solve the problems. We need continuous intelligence across how we build, we release, and manage, but most importantly also secure our digital properties and services. We need collaboration that breaks down these silos that suck. These silos that suck because all these vendors have given us legacy tools that don't interoperate with each other. And not just don't interoperate with each other, but what they do, they further lock us in. So while this is really challenging for us, and while we feel that we have to work together as a community to solve this intelligence gap, what's even more challenging for us is the continuous pain. The continuous pain that's caused by all these antiquated licensing models, vendors, technologies that don't mirror our business models of digital businesses. And more specifically, this continuous pain is causing angst. But you know what? There's an answer. There's a way to dig out of this pile of pain. This pile of pain that we've been facing together for a while. In fact, we have been digging out of this pile of pain together. The way we've been digging out of this pile of pain together is by introducing a new category of software called continuous intelligence. That's why you're here. That's why we're all here. In fact, we've been on this journey of defining this category and executing against this category together as a community for more than 4 years. I announced this in 2015 with a blog. We've been doing this for almost 5 years together. So it's now interesting that the rest of the world and community starts waking up. That's why we're here today, to communicate, to collaborate, to share. But it's not just about this group, it's also about others outside. Now what we've seen is even Gartner has recognized this as one of the most important requirements for any digital business to thrive, not just survive. It's imperative for a company to use continuous intelligence to be able to deal with their modern applications and requirements. So we did more than just actually create a category together. What we also did was we created the industry's first and only continuous intelligence platform, a cloud-native service that takes the complexities and challenges and turns them into opportunities for continuous intelligence. One that's true multi-tenant SaaS. One that's delivered as a service. One that allows you to consume what you want. So while the continuous intelligence challenges are out there, we've addressed it with an answer. And one of the ways that we've addressed that with an answer is not just the service and the platform, it's about this community. The community coming together is sharing. That's why you're here, between trainings, certifications, and sessions, and so much more. In an effort for us to continue that sharing, I actually want to highlight a couple examples. And first, I'd like to start with one of our partners and one of our community members, customer and a partner, who's actually an archetype of the digital modern business. Please welcome, joining me, Tim Armanpour, SVP of Engineering at PagerDuty.
All right. Thank you, Ramin. Good morning, everyone. I have the privilege and honor to head up engineering at PagerDuty. Been there almost 5 years. It's been a wild ride. You know, at PagerDuty, we fundamentally believe that there's a need to deliver a great experience, and that's the requirement for disruption and competitive advantage. And all of our customers have a choice. And usually we're about a click away from not meeting the expectations of our customers. And at PagerDuty, what we do is we act as that central nervous system to help aggregate all kinds of information and noise and context such that individuals that are on our platform can go from insight to action more reliably and with more confidence than ever before. We operate a real-time platform. And in this real-time operations mindset, our clock never stops, which means we're always on. We don't have scheduled maintenance. We don't have scheduled downtime. Even internally within my organization, we talk a lot about how scheduled maintenance is for cars and not for SaaS. We operate in nearly 180 markets globally across 12,000 plus customers. We have 4 regions that we're operating in right now, with another 4 going live in the next 18 months. With that, all that madness going on, all the continuous everything in this world that Ramin is talking about, we're also leaning very forward in this notion of continuous delivery. Right? 17,000 deploys are going to happen in our live environments this year. And with that, there's an incredible amount of risk that comes into play. In order to manage that risk, we maniacally embrace this notion of full service ownership, where an individual developer, once they're coding it, they're going to fully operate what they deliver end to end. We don't have the luxury of seasonality with our traffic. If your environments have a bad moment, we have to be ready. If a lot of the things that we share in this world, in the cloud world, have a bad moment, we have to be ready. A couple years ago in 2017, our friends over at Dyn DNS had a DDoS attack. Many of us were not ready. We've since now brought on 4 primary providers that round robin for both external and internal lookups. In addition, back on August 31, just a couple weeks ago, US East 1 at AWS had an interruption of service. And again, we can't predict those moments that happen out in the wild, but we do have to be ready. And we encountered nearly a 300% surge in traffic from signals coming our way, all the way to notifications going out to end users on our platform. And thankfully, we didn't hiccup, which is nice to see. At PagerDuty, we're cloud native, much like Sumo Logic. And what this means is that we have to be very intentional about choices we make, especially around our dependencies. And we're only going to be as good as our dependencies in the madness of the magic of the cloud. And in order to achieve higher degree of availability, reliability, and resiliency, what we do really spend a lot of time focusing on inside our organization is around how to be adaptable. Right? You can't predict what's going to happen next. We love the fact that we can leverage a platform like Sumo Logic to help us understand some of those anomalies that we just wouldn't have known otherwise. Especially in a distributed systems environment, we've been adding nearly onboarding 2 new engineers a week for nearly the last 2 years. Not everyone's going to know everything anymore. When it comes to those technology choices, another thing that we spend a lot of time thinking about is how not to be too enamored with the latest version 0.3 of something that got written up on Hacker News. And then you can always click through and see the wonderful world of trolls that'll have their voices there. But instead, we have to hone in on what's tried and true and what we can depend on to deliver the best experience for our customers as well. And ultimately, practice. Practice and prep makes a big difference, whether it's everything from how you respond to a major issue to how you actually start to learning how to become proactive and leveraging the platforms you're investing in. And that spans actually at PagerDuty across a number of types of users, everywhere from frontline support individuals, customer success, developers, even folks myself can use Sumo Logic, which is always nice to see. How we all bring this together starts with a day in the life of the developer. We stress this notion of being customer first, right? So everything even from the infra that we provide internally to our own engineers, we want our infra groups to think about who their customers are, right? What's most important. And we like to think about having enabling and empowering individuals, especially the developers and technologists at PagerDuty, to really be at the edge of the customer experience. So if you're going to code it, you're going to be accountable for it, you're going to go on call. In order to be successful in that, you need to be able to empower and enable individuals, right? You need to be focusing on your process, how you go again from that insight to action with the tools and other platforms that you invest in, and ultimately constantly practicing that, whether that's through various aspects of chaos engineering or ideally striving towards operational excellence. Putting that into practice is what makes us go. And when thinking about why we chose to partner with Sumo, it actually became very easy once we started talking to individuals around the industry and then interacting with the Sumo team. First and foremost, they're cloud native. We're cloud native. That's fantastic. It's actually elastic. Other providers, much like Ramin mentioned, will lift and shift, throw it into a VM, and call it cloud. And I've got countless moments of experience where that just does not fit. I really appreciated the support and partnership that took place even from day one when I first interacted with Steve Fitz and his team. Bringing in a lot of the individuals and speaking in a genuine manner meant a lot to us. It's how we approach our customer base and our partnerships as well. And it began the beginnings of a tremendous amount of trust between the two parties. We love the fact that time to value is near instantaneous with Sumo. It's exactly how we approach our product and platform offering. We're able to get nearly about 300 people inside of PagerDuty up and running in a pretty hefty transition without a blip. And that's everyone, again, from technical support on the front lines, customer success, to our head of customer success, to developers, and so on. And the fact that PagerDuty also has award-winning support, the way we're able to actually extend that out to the universe, to our customer base, has a lot to do with platforms like Sumo that we invest in. So a common example is alert will be triggered, someone will be paged, it could be someone on support frontline, it could be the actual individual developer on call for the given area, but sometimes you don't know what you're looking for. And aspects of being able to detect those anomalies in real time allows teams to quickly collaborate, triage, and ultimately remediate in record time for the customer. And what all that boils down to for us when we think about it, Sumo Logic actually is our 10x engineer. We have so much productivity leverage that we gain. The fact that we can count on Sumo to be our eyes and ears in live environments really feels like it sets us apart from the rest of the pack, and we couldn't be more thrilled to be continuing that partnership moving forward.
Great. Thank you, Tim. So what we just heard, obviously, is a use case and a community member and partner who's actually an archetype, like I mentioned before, of the modern digital business. And it's absolutely imperative for a company like PagerDuty and Tim and team to have a partner like Sumo Logic that delivers continuous intelligence to drive PagerDuty's continuous availability. So while we recognize that not all companies are like PagerDuty or Sumo, being that they started and were born and bred in the cloud or cloud native, we recognize more importantly that many companies, and you in the room, are going through your digital transformation journeys. And the need to be able to support the lift and shift that's happening from on-premise legacy to the cloud. The need to have choice specifically with where those workloads run. We'll talk about that more later. The next example we thought we'd highlight is an example of a company that's going through their digital transformation, and more specifically, how this individual, who's been a great partner as well, and a customer of Sumo, has been leveraging his security strategy and the team's efforts to be able to manage not only the concept of a digital pour, but data privacy and security. Please welcome, joining me, Kailan Bhatt, Global Director of Cloud Security, ABInBev. Thanks,
Thanks, Ramin. So excited to be back here talking to you all, having this conversation, but I have to admit, I'm actually a bit nervous because I have to make a confession. Until a couple of years ago, the sum total of what I knew about beer, I learned in high school. I mean college. It turns out that there's a deep tradition when it comes to brewing beer. And it's something that's fundamental to really human civilization. People have been coming together thousands of years over beer. It's one of the first products that we produced. I've been enlightened. I'm learning much more about that tradition. And literally as well as figuratively. And our tradition really helps shape our value. We want to bring people together to build a better world. 20 miles south of here, where I'm based in Mountain View, there's an innovation center of ours, one of several, called the Beer Garage. There we're bringing people together to build a better world and help us evolve on our digital journey. Some of the things that we're doing span artificial intelligence and machine learning, applying the premise of AI/ML in our breweries. For example, we're looking at beer after it's been brewed, passing through a filtration process and having optical image scanning and assisting the brewmaster who previously she had to constantly monitor the output of that filter. And just before any of us could detect it, but when she could detect it, she'd swap out that filter. Sometimes if she catches it too late, we have to throw that whole batch away. What a tragedy that is. But with AI and ML, we can move faster and be more efficient before a human being can detect any change. Further downstream in our supply chain, we're applying IoT and robotics to combat things like driver fatigue, to efficiently route shipments, to use autonomous shipping. And these are production pilots that you're seeing on the screen. Still closer to the consumer, we're trying to build a deeper relationship between folks like you and me and our beer. Why is it that I can pick up a bottle of wine anywhere and on the label it tells me so much information, the variety of the grape, the year, where it was produced, who was behind that, but I can't do the same thing for beer? Well, it turns out the supply chain is much more complex. So we're trying to solve that problem by looking at our commodity chain and putting that on the blockchain so that as a consumer, when you pick up that beer, you can actually scan a QR code and now have a story about this is where the beer came from. This is where that barley or the hops came from. This was the brewmaster behind that. So that builds a deeper relationship between us and our consumers. And finally, we're applying analytics to data that we're collecting. We've made acquisitions in this space, and we're really proud of the work that's happening with one of our subsidiaries called Weisberger. I want to talk a little bit more about this particular example. We realize that data is the currency of the future, and for us, we're trying to unlock value for our business, be more efficient, make our consumers more happier, and realize that vision of building a better world. Some of the things we're doing, for example, in advertising, digital signage and commercials, placing the right product at the right time and mapping that ROI and the consumer engagement. In taverns around the world, you'll have smart coolers who are not just helping the barkeeps stock the products that's moving quickly, but also ensuring it's at the right temperature. Further down at the point of sale, we're doing integration with all sorts of point of sale terminals where data about what you ordered and what you bought to drink with that is being analyzed by us. You got burgers and fries and a Bud Light. We'd like to know about that. We'd like to offer you maybe a promotion, an upsell opportunity, or even some pairing choices as you're ordering through a digital tablet at the point of consumption. But of course, as we know, and as I'm painfully aware as a security professional, more data means more responsibility. And the trust that has been placed in us by our consumers and our partners puts a heavy burden on us. I'm really happy to say that Sumo Logic has helped us achieve our goals in security. Sumo is at the heart of our security operations. Our SOC pictured here could not exist today without the central role that Sumo plays. At the perimeter, at our endpoints, in our industrial network, our 200,000 employees, as they're using SaaS, we're securing them and our infrastructure thanks in part to the extensibility, the scalability, the ease of use that Sumo provides in ingesting logs, in being able to do correlation between these different security tools, in being able to run automation. We have hundreds of playbooks running so that we don't have to have hundreds of people. And we also have integrated ticketing systems. So in short, I'd like to say that as we're on this digital journey, as we're securing the data that has been entrusted to us, it's really important and great to have a partner like Sumo. I'd love to speak more and learn from all of you over the next couple of days about how you're leveraging this technology. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. So what did I take away from that session? Besides high school beers or college. I took away that not only does Anheuser-Busch place a lot of emphasis on value, particularly to the consumer, and how they actually look at their digital services to deliver unprecedented experience, to deliver that digital pour that we talked about, but also that they've become an IoT company. And an IoT company that has to make sure that they not only protect from a privacy perspective, but also a security perspective. And similar to PagerDuty and other customers, what they really need is a continuous intelligence platform that's providing a cloud-native SIM that Anheuser-Busch team is using to be able to stop attacks, but more importantly, to get offensive, not defensive, with their security posture. So these two examples we just talked about represent a customer that's born and bred in the cloud, a customer that's going through the digital transformation journey and disrupting everything from logistics to financial services and the like. And they represent the spectrum of customers that we have, and more importantly, the community that exists, that we're all working together to drive towards closing that intelligence gap. One thing we all have in common, though, regardless of where we are in that journey, is that we're leveraging the industry's first cloud-native intelligence platform. One that's true multi-tenant, SaaS, and more importantly, secure. One that actually leverages patented machine learning algorithms that provides real-time intelligence to not only operational insights or security insights, we call operational intelligence and security intelligence, but also business intelligence. This platform is used by more than 2,000 customers. And more importantly, many of those customers, many of those partners are here today talking about their experiences and their challenges with going through the digital transformation journey, but also the experiences they have leveraging Sumo to address their needs around continuous intelligence. So I encourage you to go by the sessions. Many of the partners are here, learn from them, and take advantage of this time that we have together. Now I'd like to transition, and I'd like to talk about some of the announcements we're making at Illuminate 2019. The first announcement is around our new solution for continuous intelligence for Kubernetes. This actually started well over a year ago when we started providing some basic capabilities. What we found actually, though, during this process is that we needed to provide a solution that addresses not just one silo team that's building or releasing software, but the entire spectrum of folks across development, operations, security, and more. We needed to provide a solution that spans all those constituents, but more importantly, one that took a lot of that complexity away and provide the best end-to-end experience that started with discoverability, observability, and ended with security. It's not just about a silo that we provide in terms of visualization or observability. In this new world we live in, where Docker, Kubernetes, and other technologies are used to deliver choice because customers want to be able to deploy across any provider, it's imperative that you have a comprehensive solution that delivers on these three, not just a silo. So while I can stand here and talk a lot more about the solution, we thought actually we'd do something different. we thought we'd show you. So with that, I'd like to actually invite our technical product manager to stage. Come on up.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, Ramin. Hey, everybody. It's great to be here at Illuminate, and I'm really excited to show you what we've been working on with Kubernetes. But before I dive in, I want to start with a story. Kubernetes is complex. It consists of a lot of moving parts that are all working together to seamlessly orchestrate your containerized applications. But it's not always smooth sailing with Kubernetes. Let's take a look at the day in the life of a Kubernetes platform engineer. It might start with a Slack notification or a PagerDuty alert that tells you about a problem with the application. And from there, you go into the application logs, try to see what you can uncover and see if you can resolve the issue. Next, you need to dive into Kubernetes configuration itself, maybe checking the limits to make sure the pods have the right limits they need. After that, you want to get a sense of the overall health of Kubernetes. You dive into the events to see what's been happening with the cluster, what's happened across time. Next, you dive into your GitHub or to your CI/CD process. What's changed? Has there been any new code pushes lately? And then you start to think about your dependencies. How are all these applications related together? How are they all fitting together? How are they all moving together? You continue down this rabbit hole, going into your cloud infrastructure, your network, really trying to understand what's happening with Kubernetes and what's going on with your applications today. This story is really the synthesis of all the stories we have heard from our customers who are trying to monitor, troubleshoot, and secure Kubernetes. You have to navigate this complex web of dependencies to understand any issues and really get to any resolution from them. Now, our solution was built to help you navigate those complexities, and it gives you discoverability, observability, and security of your Kubernetes clusters. Can we transition to the demo, please? It all starts with Explore, a new interface that we've developed. Now, Explore gives you a single pane of glass to look at all of your Kubernetes clusters, no matter where they're running. You can see here that I have 5 different Kubernetes clusters. Some of them are running in our managed service providers, managed cloud providers. Some of them are on-prem. But Explore lets you see your Kubernetes clusters through a lot of different perspectives. For example, here we're looking at Kubernetes through the node view. And I can drill into a cluster, see the underlying nodes that make up that cluster, but I can even go deeper, drilling into the pods that are running on that node, or even into the containers that are running on that pod. This gives me context about my applications and where they're running and kind of the dependencies that are happening between them. But Explore gives us multiple perspectives to look at. For example, I could take a look at the namespace view and get a context of all the namespaces in my cluster. Or maybe drill into a more application and service focus by looking at the Kubernetes services and deployments that make up those applications. Explore is also serving as navigation. As I navigate around Explore, the content will show me exactly what I need to see at the right time. All of this content is our new Kubernetes application. And apps in Sumo are pre-built content around some technology or service that give you out-of-the-box insights into the health of that particular application. Let's take a look at some of the content from our new Kubernetes app. Now, all of our new apps, they're built on a new dashboarding framework that makes it easy to unify intelligence from applications or infrastructure. It brings a wealth of new capabilities, including new visualizations. Here we're looking at Kubernetes Cluster Explorer. This is a new dashboard we've created to give you high-level insights into what's going on within your Kubernetes cluster. And really what it's showing you is memory and resource utilization for that cluster from different lenses. It's making heavy use of our new honeycomb visualizations. Honeycombs are a great way to organize a lot of different distinct entities and get a sense of what's happening on them. However, one of the challenges with honeycombs is that it doesn't give you a sense of what's happened across time. You can't really look at a honeycomb and determine what the behavior of that particular entity has been. But with Sumo logic, as you hover over your Kubernetes clusters, you'll get a nice timeline view from the tooltip that brings in that additional context. So you know how these entities are behaving now in aggregate and how they have been behaving across time. Now, we also have our honeycombs here, and we can also group them by different dimensions. And this brings a lot of additional context and ways of looking at your data. So for example, here, we've actually grouped our honeycombs by nodes, and now each of the honeycombs represent the pods that are running on that node. And the nice thing is we get this nice color density to give us a little bit more perspective. The color density is actually going to tell me about the relative resource usage for that pod relative to all the other nodes that are running on that pod. This gives me a quick indicator of what is going on, who are the heavy hitters within this node particular, and of course, as I highlight over, I get a nice timeline view of what's going on. Now, in addition to looking at the honeycomb views, in addition to getting this high-level context, oftentimes we see something and we want to go a bit further. We want to dive into something interesting that we've seen. And with our honeycomb visualization, you can simply click on any of the entities that looks interesting or showing you something that you want to see, and you can pivot to another stream of data. So, for example, I could pivot to the logs, or pivot to specifically error logs, or even pivot to error signatures, where we'll run a log reduce for you. Simply click on what you want to view. It'll open up in the log search, and we'll carry forward all that metadata with all the context you need. All you have to do is a click. Now, all of these features are built into all of our content. This was this one dashboard. Let's take a look at another. Let's take a look at Cluster Overview. Cluster Overview is designed to give you a high-level perspective of what is happening on your Kubernetes cluster. And it's comprehensive. We start with cluster usage. We can see resource usage across the entire cluster. I can even get indications of any errors that are maybe happening. Unlike other solutions, we've also got security built right in. I can quickly see the top 10 security rule violations that have occurred within my cluster. As I scroll down, I can continue to unpack my cluster here. Here we're looking at all the pods running, but taking advantage of our honeycombs to group by namespace. Now I have context about where they're running and which ones are there, and if anything's unhealthy within those. As I scroll down, we can break down the cluster resource usage across namespaces to see how things are performing, what's our overall resource usage. We can also get a quick indication into how those namespaces are performing with respect to the memory or CPU limits that we've defined for them. Continuing down, I can get a breakdown of all the nodes within my cluster, quickly identify any nodes that are in a bad state or not healthy, see any kind of scaling events that are happening with my nodes, as well as look at my node memory and CPU and all my resource usage. But we can also get an indication of the pods, quickly seeing what pods are running, do we have any that have failed, and what kind of resource usage those pods are consuming. Explore has built-in content at every level that you want to look at. If you drill into a namespace, you'll get a curated view of a new dashboard built around that namespace that gives you insights into what's running on that namespace, how it's running, and how it's behaving across time. Click into a service, and you get a curated view specific to that service. You can see how all the pods in that service are behaving individually and how they're behaving collectively as the service itself. All of this content is built into Explore, and it all comes seamlessly out of the box. Explore makes it really easy for you to discover your Kubernetes clusters with complete context. And our curated content is built to help expose core insights of critical issues that you would want to be alarmed to when you're monitoring and troubleshooting any Kubernetes cluster. All of these insights are driven by a powerful and comprehensive data collection process that delivers comprehensive data and complete enrichment of that data to Sumo Logic. Could we transition back to the slides, please? Within any Kubernetes cluster, there's really 4 key pillars of data that you want to look at: logs, metrics, events, and security events. And our collection process is built around open source cloud native tooling, all widely embraced by the Kubernetes community and supported by the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. We use FluentBit as a log aggregator. It's a very lightweight agent that runs as a daemon set on every node in the cluster to capture logs. We run FluentD as a deployment, and we've developed a FluentD plugin that gives us all the events from the Kubernetes cluster as well. And for metrics, we're integrating with Prometheus. Prometheus is the de facto choice of monitoring any Kubernetes cluster. It is extremely simple to deploy through the Prometheus operator, and it makes it very easy to use. We deploy Prometheus essentially as a collector, using the operator, which makes it very simple, but all of the metrics get sent to our scalable backend built for long-term retention. In addition to logs, metrics, and events, we're also capturing key security events, and we've integrated Falco into our collection process. Falco is an open source kernel-level anomaly detection tool, and we deploy that as that to give you deep insights into the security of your Kubernetes clusters right out of the box. Now, all of this data will go through a centralized enrichment process to ensure that for every stream of data, you have consistent metadata about all the streams of data. And it's that metadata is really crucial. It's what drives a lot of the capabilities I showed in Explore. Being able to navigate your clusters, being able to pivot and drill between streams of data, and being able to search by what you already know, making it very simple for you to find the data you need when you need it. All of this collection is packaged up as a Helm chart, and deploying this is as simple as Helm install Sumo Logic. Now, can we transition back to the demo, please? Now, I talked a lot about observability within this, and having an observable system is more than just being able to monitor and troubleshoot it. To have a truly observable system, you need to have security built right in. And we talked about Falco. We've got Falco deployed as part of our collection process. We've got content built into this. But there's more content here. Our app comes with a lot of different insights and prepackaged dashboards that are going to show you about all the insights that Falco is finding. In addition to that, Falco also integrates with the Kubernetes audit logs. If you have the audit logs turned in your Kubernetes cluster, then Falco will automatically analyze those. And that's going to bring additional security context to any kind of security issue that's occurring within the cluster itself. Our solution was built around discoverability, observability, and security. And it's a platform to really give you the continuous intelligence that you need to manage your Kubernetes clusters. But rather than hear that from me, I thought it would be good to hear from one of our customers. We've had a lot of customers who have been working with us as part of our design partnership program for the last several months. And I wanted to bring up Jeremy Profit from LendingTree, who can come up and talk a little bit about how he's finding the solution, using the solution today. Jeremy, thanks for joining me today. So to start off, you're using Kubernetes today, and I talked a lot about the challenges that customers are finding with Kubernetes. I was wondering if you could share some of your own challenges. What's been challenging for you guys at LendingTree?
Yeah, I think, it started out with we want to be developer-based CI/CD pipelines, and that's great, but we have to abstract away, secrets in production. We need to abstract away those settings in which we as the DevOps team want to keep, internal to our own settings, internal to our own needs. And that's a real big challenge, giving them control of some things but not others. We've had a challenge of having to have Kubernetes now with PHP and WordPress and Java and .NET Core, which is most of what we write. But those languages, those Docker instances all get tech differently, and that's a huge challenge when you're trying to learn, when you're trying to teach a tech ops team. And for us, I think the worst part has been that challenge of getting that knowledge transfer. Kubernetes is not simple. I mean, it is, but it's very intricate when you get down below. It's not just Rancher on a screen. It's kind of hardcore down below. So getting that tech knowledge out there to our DevOps team so that we're not always calling one guy on call, that's been a real challenge.
Makes sense. One of the things that Ramin hit on in his keynote, and he was talking about continuous choice. Choice in cloud providers, choice in making decisions. And Kubernetes is really a way to go multi-cloud, right? All these powerful abstractions make it possible to do that. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey with multi-cloud and how Kubernetes may help you get there?
Yeah, I think for me, being a reliability engineer, it's about, when US East 1 went down, we didn't have any other option. We couldn't evacuate a number of things because that's where our databases were. And so when you look at reliability, multi-cloud is where you have to be, right? We're getting to the point where our providers are now our weakest link in getting our activity done. And I think it's been, it's just been an interesting journey to try to convince, our leadership that we have to spend this money to go multi-cloud. And then you come back with, we could save money here. We could leverage these relationships, these acquisitions we've bought, and their relationships with their vendors to try to drive down price and cost as well.
Makes a lot of sense. Now, you've been a part of our design partner program. You've been using the new solution for a few months. I'd love to hear a little bit about how the solution's helped you with discoverability, observability, and security within your Kubernetes clusters.
Yes, so observability is definitely number one. You walk around our development teams of 100 people, and 20, 50-inch TVs, dashboards made by our staff engineers. We're seriously into using Sumo to view what's working in production and what's not. And looking at our Kubernetes, looking at our hardware to do that is just phenomenal. And having that in a single pane of glass, not having an additional login and additional screen, really has a lot of value for us.
Very cool, very cool. Well, thanks a lot, Jeremy. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thanks to all our design partners who helped us build this out. Enjoy the rest of your Illuminate. Back to you, Ramin.
Thank you, Frank and Jeremy. So it's obvious that while Kubernetes brings a lot of opportunity, particularly for those building, managing, securing microservices-based applications for not just one cloud, but multi-cloud, it brings a lot of complexity. And one of the things that we've been trying to do is make sure we constantly reduce that complexity, and more importantly, provide more value. So we're happy to announce today that we've actually done that for you besides our new solution. So the solution's available for you today. It's been generally available. And what you saw actually from Frank was a live demo, which is always dangerous to do in terms of one of these events, but it's a testament to how we put quality first and make sure we deliver reliability so that you can ensure user experience and availability. Second thing that I want you to make sure you take advantage of is the folks that are here. Purpose of this event is to share, to learn, to get intelligent or smarter. So one of the things we're doing is making sure that a lot of the sessions are actually delivered by you, and over 60% of the sessions are actually delivered by the community. A lot of those sessions are talking about their challenges, and specifically not just doing cloud migration, but what specifically they're doing with Sumo and the experience they've had with their Kubernetes management solution that we just provided. A lot of the design partner programs. But we decided to do something else. We actually decided to make it a little bit more incentive for you. Besides the general availability of the solution, we decided to increase the value to you. We've actually automatically credited your account so that if you start sending us Kubernetes data, we're going to increase your allocated consumption credits so that you can actually try our Kubernetes solution. And to some case, for some of you, that's upwards of 25 times your allocated credits that you already have today. So we are definitely not just serious, but we're motivated to make sure we help you manage your Kubernetes environment. So I encourage you not only to go to the sessions, but also leverage this promo and get started on your Kubernetes journey with Sumo if you haven't done so already. So while there's great releases and capabilities we built for managing Kubernetes that goes across discoverability, observability, and security, and ultimately delivering reliability, we asked ourselves, what can we do yet again to make sure that we're the best partner for you, that delivers that choice you need that we talked about earlier? So I'm happy to announce that we spent over the last year building the industry's first continuous intelligence DevSecOps blueprint. This DevSecOps blueprint is designed for you, to give you the choice that you want for the tools that you're using today, but also the flexibility for what you want to use tomorrow. Because we all want choice, as we talked about earlier, without the lock-in. So choice in terms of tools is one thing, but choice in terms of providers is another thing. And hence the reason why many of you are adopting Kubernetes, because you want that portability and, more importantly, that option for choice. So besides this blueprint that we've been building that addresses all the constituents in the life cycle, with all the tools that you need today and potentially tomorrow, we decided to do something else. We've actually enhanced our partnership with GCP to help you leverage those shackled VMs, those workloads that are on-prem, and give you an option and a choice to be able to lift and shift those. And so as many of you are probably familiar, Google and others have been driving an initiative around Anthos, and more importantly, Service Mesh and Istio. So I'm happy to announce that we've been partnering with Google to really not only provide support for these initiatives, but also provide you an opportunity to leverage Sumo and GCP together. With that, I'm happy to introduce Jennifer Lin, Director of Product Management for Anthos, Google Cloud. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. All right, thanks very much, Ramin, and thanks for having me today. I'm super excited, especially after the lineup of folks that just went through. Hopefully everybody can agree that there's a lot of change happening right now, certainly in the software space as well as cloud. The last decade of cloud has really been about infrastructure as a service and lift and shift. And as Ramin mentioned, at our user conference this year, we announced Anthos, formerly known as our cloud services platform, to kind of elevate the discussion around cloud. We call Anthos our platform for application modernization. And as many of you know, Google is a company of software engineers. We built our internal cloud really based around software agility and driving essentially new software applications into the consumer space to optimize the user experience. And in order to do that, we had to essentially build a distributed system that allowed fragmented sets of engineers to essentially work but still deliver a consistent experience to our customers. Anthos as a cloud platform really extends what we've been doing with GCP, and we've reached into the on-prem and multi-cloud environments because there's a major inflection going on with how software is being built. I think as you've seen, Sumo and many of the partners have leaned into that with Kubernetes as a way to not only lean into containerization, and that gives us workload portability across different environments, so now we're not bound into a hardware platform and an OS and a kernel version and all of that. Developers can move quickly, write once, run anywhere, and that includes across cloud providers. So this notion really caught the attention, I think, of our customers and our partners. And while Google hasn't been in the enterprise space for many, many years, because of the pace at which things are changing and the transformation that folks like Anheuser-Busch are going through right now, software is essentially core to our customers essentially reinventing themselves, and we want to make that very easy. A lot of changes happening in how platform operations is done. We've tried to automate a lot of the complexity away with Kubernetes and still give a lot of the flexibility if you're the cluster administrator, if you're the cloud service administrator, or if you're the user that essentially wants to just self-provision something from the marketplace. So this Anthos is dictating both an open framework for customers and developers in the ecosystem, as well as essentially how we think about ongoing lifecycle management and hiding a lot of the complexity. While Kubernetes has now just celebrated its 5-year anniversary since being open sourced, Google open sourced it 5 years ago after a decade of experience in building essentially our own internal controller called Borg. Highly distributed global scale cluster management system that allowed our thousands of engineers to essentially just check in code and not have to worry about the governance issues, the ongoing SRE concerns that as an administrator on the operations side you have to worry about. So Kubernetes is the base for Anthos. It gives us essentially workload portability and system level orchestration in a way that's consistent at global scale. On top of that, the notion of the service mesh has been picking up attention. It is also based on something that we've been doing for over a decade within Google to write these highly distributed systems. As you build more and more parallel distributed development teams, this notion of microservices and not just one big monolithic set of code, but essentially breaking these services down with common interfaces. So the ability to consistently connect, secure, and lifecycle manage microservices is really the notion of service mesh. And Istio obviously was out there picking up a lot of attention to kind of think about how do we hide the complexity. Now that you're in this world of distributed systems and containers and microservices, how do you manage it and hide the complexity of the operational lifecycle? So things like service lifecycle operations, how do you essentially set the SLO, monitor that, and keep the user experience consistent against that is core to how we think about service mesh. We've also built Anthos on one of the building blocks around serverless, and Knative is essentially something we've, once again, really built it very quickly an open ecosystem around. And this is really around hiding all of the infrastructure complexity. Knative is built on Kubernetes, but the assumption here is that you're not the cluster administrator, and so you want to essentially hide all the complexity of running the infrastructure itself. Developers love it because they can essentially just write a function, do something that's triggered by events, and not have to worry about anything related to the underlying infrastructure. So that separation of concerns is really important, and I love the way that Sumo Logic has set up this event, because I think, as you see, if you have an open architecture that you can separate the stakeholder concerns, then everybody can move fast, and we can divide and conquer as an industry. So we're really excited that Sumo Logic has been a long time Google Cloud partner, but also leaned in very quickly to Anthos and Service Mesh, because they understand very deeply this notion of continuous intelligence and using real-time data to close the loop between the end user, the stakeholders like the security administrators, as well as the operators. This notion of how do we turn this insight into a major component of the platform of the future is really exciting for us. We've already discovered a number of common customers that were excited by our joint announcements. So it's early days still with Anthos and what we're doing together here, but we did want to give you a little bit of snapshot. Obviously, because we have such an alignment of the underlying principles built on Kubernetes, that gives us essentially the extensibility. We can start on-prem with many customers who essentially are using Sumo today on-prem, already having evolved from, let's say, a self-managed Kubernetes environment to now essentially having that more as a managed service. The ability to quickly troubleshoot and tie that into how do I remediate the environment is obviously core to the business that Sumo has been in, as well as what we've been doing from a managed platform perspective. And then how do we deep dive, depending on essentially how deep you want to go, the level of telemetry, the Kubernetes APIs essentially make both pods and services a first-class citizen. So you can drill in, but you don't have to start there. You can essentially see the topology view and drill down depending on what information you're trying to get to. So I think that encapsulates why, number one, we really have a set of shared principles and see sort of a different future together moving forward with very self-driven ecosystem partners like Sumo. So thanks very much for the time today.
Thank you very much. So as you can see, we've put a lot of emphasis over the last year to really provide the industry's most comprehensive solution, not only from the features and capabilities or reliability of our service, but also integrations to the various tools and technologies that you need, and last but definitely not least, partners that you want to use to run their Kubernetes microservices-based applications around. So while we're really excited about that, I also want to stop and thank and acknowledge everyone who was involved in building this solution. And I know you guys worked really hard to release this. It released today in GA, and I know customers are really happy about it. So with that, I want to appreciate and acknowledge all the Sumo folks. So now I want to take a step and talk about our next announcement. And for those of you that were at Illuminate last year, you heard us announce industry's first and only global intelligence service. That was comprised of 3 components. First, industry insights. Secondly, community insights. And last, data science insights. Today I want to talk about 2 of these highlights specifically with our industry's global intelligence service. The first one is around industry insights. And we've actually released the Continuous Intelligence Report, and it's the 4th edition. And the second area that I want to highlight is our global intelligence service that's been expanded and new innovations that we've applied to Amazon Guard Duty. First, let's talk about the Continuous Intelligence Report. For all those here at the conference, you have a copy of this report. For all those joining us live streaming, you can download this app, actually this report, and it gives you a sense of the trends that we're seeing. And most importantly, these trends are actually based on 2,000 plus customers that are using the service daily to get continuous intelligence. This is not a survey. This is actually usage data. And as a result, all the users' data is anonymized so that there's no issues or security concerns. So what do we glean from this? And what intelligence do we get that's really important to share here? Because that's why we're here. The first thing is, as you heard all morning, Kubernetes is the flavor du jour, right? Most importantly, Kubernetes is not only just growing rapidly, we've seen more than 2x growth in use of Kubernetes in our own install base over the last year. But what Kubernetes is doing to all of us is providing an opportunity. and more importantly, is a result of more than 50% growth that we see in multi-cloud adoption year over year. But unfortunately, what we also see is that concerns remain. Those concerns that remain are around what? Security. You can't have an incomplete service or an incomplete solution, and you need to make sure that you're not only using some of the basic security services from the cloud providers, but also complement that with best-in-class technologies like Sumo's Cloud Native SIEM to give you that holistic view and be able to manage end-to-end discoverability, observability, and security, for example, of Kubernetes. So while this intelligence report is phenomenal and gives you great insights, there's also some other ways that we've been leveraging our platform to get insights. And that is looking at all the data that we're analyzing, several hundred petabytes of data every single day. We looked at all this data and we decided we need to apply some algorithms, some anomaly detection to give a better perspective of your security threat posture. We provided the first and only industry's global intelligence service, which has a lot of benchmarking and key risk indicators that gives you new ways to visualize how your baselines are versus your peers and quickly understand where you're being attacked in real time. So while this is very disruptive and innovative, we're investing quite a bit more, not only just applied to security, but also the operational use case to give you intelligence, such as key performance indicators, benchmarks, and more. You'll see more coming from us around this, and we're really excited about the opportunity to leverage this and provide that for you. I want to shift gears. I want to talk about the third announcement, and this is something core to the heart. This is something that we've been doing since day one of the service being available. Something we've been committed to democratize access for all. And it starts with how you actually provide users the ability to get those insights and intelligence and not penalize and charge them. Unfortunately, still, we're left in a world where vendors want to take advantage of you. Why? Lock-in. What we see today, and unfortunately what we've seen for the last decade from the various software, infrastructure, database, and other vendors, is they use the antiquated tactics to make sure you have no choice. They use antiquated tactics because they're legacy licensing models, and they walk in, do ELAs and true-ups, and then you get penalized. To make matters worse, they penalize you for going over the daily limit because their systems can't scale. And then they do unwanted audits. Those are a joy. But it gets worse. It gets worse because we all know the third one, the dreadful what? Data tax. The dreadful data tax that some folks charge and have the audacity to continue with. To make matters even more humiliating here, they're taking their cloud service and they're charging you by CPU and core. That's their new packaging and licensing. But it gets worse than that. They charge you for limitations of users because their systems can't scale, and once concurrency of users come on and data comes in, everything drops. We've seen that time and time again with our customers. So what are we doing about it? This is nothing new for us. We've been trying to disrupt this all along since 2010 when we started the company. What we've been doing is not only delivering unprecedented value, but we've actually introduced some new capabilities I'm happy to talk about today. The first new announcement is our Sumo Logic credit-based licensing model. And the second is we're introducing a new lineup of packaging for you to take advantage of this consumption-based model or credit-based model so you can continue on your intelligence journey with us. Let's talk about those two. First, on the credit-based model. What we've done effectively is taken away the complexity, right? What we've allowed you to do is now consume whatever you want, however you want. Whether it's logs, metrics, events, tracing, what you want to do with SIEM, tier data storage, and more and more. There shouldn't be any tax on that. More importantly, we continue to allow all your users, not a subset, to get access to this. Hence the democratization vision and goal we've always had. But as you continue to grow and scale, you're able to leverage all those advanced features in new packages I'll talk about in a second. And last but definitely not least, no data tax or penalties. We have no overages or fines for exceeding your limits. So while this is a revolutionary model that actually delivers flexibility and choice that you need, that mirrors the economic model of your businesses and digital strategies, there's more than just the licensing model. We've actually announced new packaging to support that. Whether you start with us with Sumo Logic Free, like many of you do, or whether you start with our smaller editions of Essentials to get up and running, or whether you want a purpose-built solution for operational intelligence, or specifically security intelligence, and last but definitely not least, you want to consume the entire suite, we provide the industry's only continuous intelligence platform for dev, sec, and ops. And now, allows you to consume that or use that in an innovative consumption-based model or usage-based model, leveraging credits. The good news is these credits aren't really hard for you to administer. Everything is real time for you. In the product you saw in the last screenshot, it actually shows you where you are in terms of that consumption. And if you want to add more, you can. You want to change usage of features, you can. You want to change your retention policies, you can. Try that with others. Can't. With Sumo, we provide continuous intelligence for your DevSecOps teams. So while these packaging changes, and more importantly, licensing model changes that we've introduced are new, our strategy is not. This is something we've been consistent on ever since we've delivered our service, and our commitment has always been the same to you. And that commitment continues today. And that commitment from us is around three areas that I want to highlight first with respect to this announcement and strategy. So let's recap those. One, industry's first continuous intelligence platform for DevSecOps with revolutionary updates for Kubernetes monitoring and management, security, the ecosystem, integrations, partnership with GCP, and more. Leveraging that platform allows you to become not just more intelligent, but more agile and speed the delivery of your digital businesses, services, and applications. The second thing we announced today is our Global Intelligence Service and the updates we made to the Intelligence Report, which is our 4th edition, as well as the Global Intelligence Service that we applied to Amazon Guard Duty. And you'll see more and more coming there. And last but definitely not least, the third part of our announcements, to recap, is the new licensing and packaging model that I talked about. So holistically, these announcements not only allow you to have the flexibility and choice, but allow us together to be able to close the intelligence gap that we face and see every single day. And more importantly, address the 5 continuous challenges that we talked about up front. So what does that mean for us? What that simply means, our continuous commitment to you to close the intelligence gap is unwavering. We've been on this mission for well over 9 years, and we'll be on this mission for many more years to come together. And as we look at on that mission and vision, one thing we'll continuously do for you is build and develop the most innovative product capabilities and solutions to address the challenges you're facing today and tomorrow. The second continuous challenge that we're helping you address is leverage the massive platform that we have with the insights and intelligence of all the user data that you're sending us, all the insights and intelligence we're getting, and to provide that back to you. Leverage the power of that SaaS platform to embrace and empower the community that uses it. And last, continue on our mission to deliver unparalleled value and unlock the shackles that we've faced for decades and more. So with that, with all the announcements that we've made, with all the partners and customers that are here today, I want to thank you. And together, at this conference, and tomorrow and beyond, we will thrive in the intelligence economy. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the conference.